single day I'm gonna make something great. That's my way. Every single day I'm gonna make something great.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to show you how to make a cartoon using a different app. So the app I'll be using is known as IbisPaint X, and once you're on the app you want to click on my gallery and click on the plus sign above to pick a canvas size. Normally I pick the SD size. Once you have your canvas size selected, what you do next is to click on the layer icon below and click on the camera icon by your left, and that automatically lets you select a picture from your gallery or from your camera roll and import the picture into the canvas. So once you have the picture selected, what you do next is to make sure that the image layer is below, because whatever you're doing is going to be above that layer. On a new layer, what you do next is to click on the brush option, and for you to pick a brush you're going to be working with. Because I want to work with the hair first, so I'm going to pick the hair brush, and as you can see IbisPaint have different brushes, so you can always explore around it, but I'm working on the hair, so I'm picking the hair brush first. So I'm checking for the color to see that I'm picking the right color, but because I'm making the hair, which is obviously black, I'm picking the black color for this hair. So once I've had the color set out, and I'm going to make sure that my brush size is to the size I want it to be, and I'm also double checking to see if I'm on the right layer. As you can see, I checked for the brush size so I can work my way around how I want it to be, and now I'm making strokes around just the hair part alone. So as you can see, the hair is very light, so I'm adding more volume to the hair so it makes it look fuller. And while I'm done with that part of the hair, what I do next is also, because the hair has a fade, so I'm going to reduce the opacity of the brush and stroke lightly so it gives the feeling that the hair has a fade by the side. So I'm retouching and touching up some of the things that I feel like is necessary for me to add to the hair, like some of those little strands around the hair, so it's very important. And while I'm also doing that, I'm double checking to see that I'm doing it right. So like I missed a spot over here, so I'm back to doing it. So after that is done, what I do next is to add a new layer by clicking on the plus sign, and I'll make sure the layer is below the hair layer. Next thing is for me to choose a different brush, which I'm going to be using the dip pen, the soft one, because I'm trying to outline the picture. So I'm using that brush and I'm making sure that the stabilizer is turned off. I'm going to turn the stabilizer on later, but for this part I need it to be turned off, and I'm double checking. Like I said, always double check that you're on the right layer, and the only thing you just do as from right now is for you to just outline the picture exactly as you're saying. And if you can't see clearly, you can always reduce the opacity of the image so you can outline properly. Don't be scared to try the outline multiple times. If the lines are not correct, you can always undo them, and the easiest way for you to undo is for you to tap on the screen with your two fingers at the same time. That way it's going to undo any bad stroke or any mistake you've made, and you can always correct it to how you want it to be. So while I'm done with that, on the same layer, what I do next is for me to outline the facial features, and for this I'm going to turn on the stabilizer by phosphating the brush. Once you phosphate the brush, that way it gives like a taser feeling or a taper feeling at the tip of the brush. So as you can see what I'll be doing, you see the way the brush is going to come across compared to the other time when I was using the same brush. So you just use the brush and outline basically the features of the face. Particular features in the face, you can always vary the brush size, like the lower lid of the eyes. You can always make sure that the opacity and the brush size of the brush you're using is reduced, so that way you don't have too much bold lines in your tracing. The next thing you want to do is also for you to add a new layer. Like I said, whatever drawing you're doing, always do it on a new layer so that in case you make mistakes, you can always go back to that layer and correct it. So once you have your new layer done and it's above your outline layer, then you want to do the eyebrow. And for this, I would advise you to reduce the brush size, and sometimes when it's not necessary and when it's necessary, just reduce the opacity so it gives like this hairy feeling to your um, eyebrows. So just trace out and stroke along the eyebrows only. Now that I'm done with the eyebrows, what I do is that I reduce the opacity of the eyebrows so it doesn't look too bushy, and I add a new layer so I could do the eyelashes. And I'm using the same principle, like I said, do it on a new layer. And for this eyelash part, I'm going to reduce the opacity of the brush so I have this flowy eyebrow type of thing. You don't necessarily need to reduce the opacity of a brush, but for me, I don't want the eyebrow to be too dark, so that way I know what I'm doing. For those with makeup knowledge, you can know that to add volume to the eyelashes, you can always add the eyeliner so it doesn't look like the eyelashes are just lines on top of the eyes. So you can always do that. Then after you're done with the eyeliner, the next thing you want to do is for you to add a new layer, and you're adding a new layer for a new feature, like I said, and it's very important for you to know the positioning of these layers. So this new layer that I added is going to be for the painting done on the skin, so that way I'm going to be sure that whenever I make mistake, I can always come back to that layer and clean up without affecting the other layer. So now pick the color of the paint, and like the same way you did with the other things on the cartoon, trace it out. So for me, I'm still going to use the same brush, or I might change the brush to a better one like this hard type, because the soft one gives like this soft feeling to the it. It can still work when you use the soft brush, but for me, because I want to work faster, so I'm using the pen um deep pen hard brush. And now I'm just going to trace out exactly what I'm seeing, the exact stroke, the exact painting style, and I'm going to fill it out. So once you're done with that and you want to fill in the area, for you to do it on time, just click on the magic wand by the left hand side, and once you're on the magic wand, you want to select the areas you want the color to fill in. So as you can see, it has selected some of the area, but not totally everything. So I'm clicking on the icon beside it, which is the add icon, so I can add more areas where I want the color to be filled in. Then after I'm done with the selection of the layer, I go to the bucket icon. So I click on the bucket icon and I'm clicking on the area where I want the bucket to fill. And as you've seen, it's automatically filling it out. So while I'm done with that, and for me to remove the selection layer, you could click on the icon by your right, and the filling of the colors aren't that perfect. So what I do is I'll just manually go over them and refine the lines and refine the colorings. Now to add details to the pictures that I've done, to the color I've just added, what I do is that I will go back to the image layer and pick out colors from that painting, and once I've picked out the color I want for it, I'm going to do this on a new layer above that paint layer. And for me to work faster, I'm going to clip this layer by clicking on the clip icon. Once you clip the layer, anything you're doing outside the layer below that clipped layer, it's not going to be visible. It's only going to be visible inside that layer alone, and this the reason why IbisPaint is better than Adobe Draw for me personally. And the brush I'm using, like you saw, is the airbrush, so this way I can blend it easily without having harsher blending. So I'm using the airbrush to just paint out only the areas with that same color that I've picked. So once I have all the colors laid out and I want to blend it, the next thing I will do is for me to click on the blur icon. The blur icon is for you to blend it in without making this color looks very harsh. So I'm blending it gently, and you can always reduce the opacity if you feel like the blur is too harsh. So you can always reduce the opacity of the blur. So I'm blurring it out so it feels well blended, and at the same time I noticed that there are some shadows on the skin, so I'm picking the deep color, which is the shade color on the painting. So once I have the color picked out, I'm also going to do the same thing I did for the yellow highlighted thing I have on the picture. So I'm going to only paint over the part with the same dark area. And while I'm doing this, the brush I'm using, as you remember, is the airbrush, so that way it's easier for me to blend it in. Once I'm okay with that, what I do is that I just merge down that layer to the layer below, so I have a single layer for that. And while I'm done with that, I'll work on the other features that I want to work on, which is some of the features on the face, like the lipsticks and the makeup. And for this is also the same pattern I use for everything that I've done before. Just for you to just pick out the color you want for it from the image and do them on a new layer. And for faster work, I'm using different brushes. You can always try your hands around all those brushes. Just make sure you're following the same guidelines when making these pictures. So have the color, which is going to be the base color first. And once you've had the base color laid out on the picture, you want to also go back to that image, or sometimes you can just use the same base color you've used and tone it down, make the color darker, and that way you can use it for your shadings. And once you've laid that, remember the golden rules. If you want to shade or add in like a color that you need to blend later, make sure you're using the airbrush to do that, then that way it's easier for you to blend. So I'm just going to do the same thing that I've done over on this image, lay down the color, use the shade color to add in the shade using the airbrush. Don't forget, you're always going to use airbrush to add in colors you want to blend in later, and just pick out the color and blur it out. Blurring it out gives the feeling of a good blending. And as you can see, I'm doing the same pattern I did, so I don't want any of my shade color to go out of this orange color that I've added to the leaf. I'm clipping it. I'm clipping it so it doesn't go out. So I'm using the airbrush to also add in the shade into the skin. So just follow the pattern. It's very easy, and that way you're good to go. time to add the makeup, add a new layer. Always add a new layer for any new features, and pick out the colors from the makeup and follow the same pattern you're saying being done. Unless you want to add like some spice into the picture, you can always change it around. But once you want to follow the rules, just pick out the same color and follow the same pattern, and use the airbrush, because you know later you're going to blend it in, and that way everything is flowing. So I'm just going to show you the process of how I'm doing it by picking the color and adding it. Then later, once I'm okay with it, I can always blend it in. While that is done and I'm done with the makeup, so the next thing that I want to do is to add the base color for the skin, and I'm adding it on a new layer. And for those of you who don't understand what I'm doing, because this is a new app and you don't know your way around the app, you don't know where this is and where that is, I'm going to upload a new video specifically telling you how to use the IbisPaint X app, and that way it's going to be like a beginner's tutorial, so you know where you're going to pick the brush from, where you're going to reduce the opacity with whatever part you're doing. But just for this, I'm just showing you how you can use IbisPaint X to make cartoons. So since I picked out the color of the skin, I'm just going to add the skin base color, and um the pattern I'm going to use for blending is going to be different from the ones I've used on Adobe Draw. So I'm just adding in the base color, and after that I'm just going to work on the eyes. So for those of you who don't know how the eyes is being made for cartoons, I have a video specifically for eyes tutorials, so I'm going to put um, a link to the description, or you're going to see it by the card icon, where you can learn how to make eyes and the eyebrows. So I won't explain so much about the eyes, so just watch the video explaining the eyes tutorial, explaining how to make the eyes, that way you grasp what I'm talking about. So the first thing I do for the eyes is to pick out the white part of the eyes. As you can see, it's not completely white color, because most people make that mistake of picking a very white color for it. So don't always pick out the extremely white color, because the eyes is not 100% white. So we're just going to use a color similar to white but not white. So the best way for you to do is just for you to just use the color from the image. If the image is of good quality and it's good, just pick out the color from that image and paint it in. So I'm going to add a new layer above the whiter part of the eyes. So this layer is going to be for the color of the eyeballs. So I want to make these eyes to be a brown eye. So I'm picking out a color which is brown, so I can work my way around it. So the first thing you do for the eyes is for you to pick out the base color, which is, you don't have to pick the extremely brown color, because you're still going to add in some shading and highlights to it. So just pick out the base color for it, and which I'm doing. And after I'm done with that, I'm going to add in some shades on the eyeballs and also some highlights to the eyeballs. For adding the shade and the highlights on the eyeballs, so instead of me going to add a new layer by custom multiple layer, I'm just going to alpha lock that same layer I did the base color on. this works the same way as the clipping mask, but just that clipping mask is when you clip a layer below um, a particular layer, whatever you do on that new layer is just going to be a reflection of what's on the layer below. So for alpha lock, you're still on that same layer, not a new layer. So whatever marks or drawings you've made on that layer is not going to go outside of that layer, it's just going to be on that layer. This is for if you don't want to add a new layer above and clipping it, just alpha lock that layer and just work on that same layer. So whatever markings you're making is not going out of the initial painting or initial drawing you've done on that layer, since it's already alpha locked. So as you can see, I've added the shadow, the shade to the eyes, and I'm adding the highlight. So I'm still going to add some details for it to look like an eye. So like I'll say, if you don't understand or you find this very confusing, you can always watch my eye tutorial so you can understand how to do this. And now for the interesting part on how to make the skin blending. So you want to make sure that the new layer you're adding is on top of the skin base, and turn on the image layer so you can pick out the colors from the skin. And the pen I'll be using is the pen fade, and make sure that your first fade is turned off, and reduce the brush size to whatever size you're comfortable with, and pick out the colors from the skin and add those colors. At this stage, you're just adding the color you're picking out from the image layer. You're not blending it out yet at all. So just add all those colors, little colors you're seeing on the skin, the different colors that is making up the picture. Just pick the color up and add it into the canvas, to the layers you're working on. And like I told you, the arrangement of all these layers are very important. When you know where to place all these layers, you won't have problems. So once you're done picking up the color, I'll talk to you on the next thing to do, which obviously you already know, is for you to blend it out. And for you to blend it out, you're going to use the blot pen. So while I'm done with the picking of the color, and I've double checked that everything is fine, so on that same layer that I picked the colors on, I'm just going to blow them out so it looks refined and very neat. You can also add more shadings and highlights into the picture. So what I'll do is that I'll just pick out the shaded color from the image, and like I told you, always use the airbrush so you can always blend it in. So I'm going to use the airbrush to add in like some shadings to the corner of the nose and to the side of the face, so it gives it a good 3D feeling, because I don't like my colors being flat. So I'm adding more colors around the corner of the nose, as you can see, and remember to always use the airbrush so you can blend it properly. So if you're not for those of you that don't understand what we've done, or you're finding it very difficult to understand everything that I've done, that's probably because you're not used to the app, which is the IbisPaint app, or because you don't know how to work your way around this app, probably because you're a beginner. Don't worry, don't be left out, because I would upload a new video explaining specifically how to use the app and how to work your way around the app to know the corners where everything's are, so you can understand how to use it properly. And for those of you that have used the app and you, under, you understood the tutorial that I've done, and you like for me to critique some of the works you've done, you can always message me on my Instagram page so I can see some of the work you've done. So the link to my Instagram page will be in the description, or you can follow the username on the screen, which is at Carniel's Art. So send me some of your image you did on IbisPaint X so I can critique them if you feel like you're okay with that, and I would love to see some of the works you've done. And so thank you so much for watching. I hope you've learned a lot from this tutorial, and I'm grateful for every one of you who has subscribed to my channel. So you can always comment down below on the part you find very difficult, so I can take note on that, and so that when next time I will be uploading a new video, I can work on that aspect. So thank you so much for watching. So I'm just going to let you guys enjoy the rest of the video.